They told you that working hard was the key, that if you just saved, budgeted, and prayed for your big break, you'd make it. But years have passed, and you're still stuck, still waiting for some invisible reward for your hard work, while others, quieter, colder, and smarter, climb right past you. You see them, the ones who move in silence. No fancy titles, no loud bragging, no validation needed. Yet somehow they always win. They buy your time. They profit off your distractions. They get richer while you fight for survival, trapped inside the illusion they built for you. Because here's the truth no one wants to admit. You were never trained to be rich. You were trained to be useful. Trained to work for systems that feed on your time, your emotions, and your endless chase for comfort. The rich, they don't play by the same rules. They designed the game. And in this video, we're going to expose exactly why they keep winning and why you stay broke, tired, and compliant. By the end, you'll understand that wealth isn't about money. It's about mindset, leverage, and the ruthless ability to detach from the illusions that keep average men enslaved. So sit back and listen carefully, because after this, you'll never see work the same way again. And if you're ready to break free from the mental cage that keeps most men poor, subscribe and join the few who refuse to be controlled. 1. You chase income instead of power. You think money will free you, but power always comes first. The rich don't chase cash. They create systems that print it. You've been brainwashed to chase money, the symptom, instead of power, which is the source. You grind for income. They build for influence. You work in the system, they design the system. And the most dangerous part? You were conditioned to believe that hard work is noble, while they quietly exploit the noble. Every hour you trade for a paycheck, someone above you collects without lifting a finger. They profit from your time because they own the mechanism that turns your effort into their wealth. That's why the rich don't panic when they lose money. Their power regenerates it. But you lose a job and your world collapses because your income was never under your control. Machiavelli once said, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." In today's world, it's better to have leverage than money, because leverage makes money obey you. Power is what allows you to dictate value. It's what lets a man charge $10,000 for an hour others would beg to do for free. Power bends perception. It turns confidence into currency. The man who owns the frame decides what something is worth. That's why the rich don't chase, they attract. They don't ask, "How can I earn more?" They ask, "How can I control more?" Control over supply, over systems, over people's attention. You've been taught to sell your time, while they sell your attention back to you. They study psychology, not spreadsheets. They know human nature better than they know numbers. Because once you understand how people think, you can make them pay you willingly. Stop chasing income. It's a treadmill. Build power. It's an empire. Money follows the man who stops begging for it and starts commanding the world around him. And the moment you realize that, you'll stop running and start building like the rich do. 2. You trade time for money. They trade people's time for theirs. The poor sell hours. The rich buy leverage. Until you learn to detach your income from your labor, you'll stay a slave to the clock. Every morning, millions wake up to sell the most limited thing they'll ever own, their time. They exchange life for wages, hours for crumbs, existence for survival. And they call it making a living. But the truth? You're not living. You're leasing your life out to someone who already owns leverage. The poor trade effort for pay. The rich trade systems for time. That's why they can disappear for months and come back richer. Well, you can't miss a week without chaos. Leverage is the invisible weapon of the powerful. It's what allows one man to control 1,000 men's labor while appearing lazy. You call it luck. They call it structure. Understand this, the rich don't work harder, they work above. They use technology, teams, and capital to multiply what one person could never do alone. They build engines that keep spinning even when they sleep. That's why passive income isn't a dream, it's a design. But here's the bitter truth, you were never trained to think this way. You were raised to obey, not own. They fed you mantras like hard work pays off, knowing full well that working harder inside a broken system only feeds the architects of it. They want you tired enough to obey, but hopeful enough to stay. You think in hours. They think in outcomes. You think in paychecks. They think in percentages. You think, if I work more, I'll earn more. They think, if I own more, I'll earn forever. The worker sells time once and never gets it back. The owner sells a result infinitely and keeps earning long after the work is done. This is why you grind and they grow. Why you burn out and they build empires. The shift happens when you realize time is a terrible thing to sell because it's the only thing you can't buy back. So stop selling it. Start building leverage. Leverage comes in many forms: people, code, content, automation, brand. Each one extends your reach beyond your presence. Each one earns while you're gone. That's how the rich buy freedom. They use other people's time, employees, systems, tools to multiply theirs. And every minute you're working for them, they're earning on top of your effort. The poor chase money to survive the month. The rich build machines to survive eternity. You can keep trading your life for wages, or you can build something that pays you back for existing. That's the only real escape from the modern plantation, to own your hours again. Because in the end, freedom isn't about wealth. It's about who controls your time. And the day your time belongs to you, that's the day you stop being broke, even before the money arrives. 3. You spend to look rich. They spend to stay invisible. Status keeps you broke. The rich hide their wealth behind simplicity, while you advertise your poverty through consumption. The world taught you to worship the look of success, not the reality of it. You were programmed to crave validation, not value. So you buy the car, the clothes, the flex, and in doing so, you sell your financial freedom for applause. You think it's ambition. It's addiction. An addiction to being seen rather than becoming strong. Meanwhile, the real wealthy, they're invisible. They don't need to show you what they have because power doesn't beg for recognition. The poor crave symbols of wealth because they've never felt it. Luxury becomes therapy for inadequacy. Every purchase is a declaration. I matter. I'm doing well, but the rich don't need to prove it. They know the loudest man in the room is always the weakest. You buy things to look rich. They buy assets to stay rich. You purchase the car that bleeds value. They purchase the company that makes the car. You show off your paycheck. They hide their ownership. Because true wealth isn't about who knows, it's about who controls. Every luxury brand understands this game. They sell you insecurity in designer packaging. They know you'll trade your financial stability for 10 seconds of validation from strangers who don't even care. You're not buying products, you're buying permission to feel significant. That's why the rich don't dress rich. They don't need the logo to speak for them. They walk into rooms with quiet confidence, because when you truly have power, it doesn't need to scream. It whispers. The real flex isn't designer, it's discipline. It's the man who drives a modest car but owns 3 rental properties. It's the woman who wears simple clothes but has a 6-figure stock portfolio. It's the one who doesn't need to prove wealth because wealth has already proven itself through freedom. Meanwhile, you burn your money to feed a lie, the lie that image equals influence. You think people will respect you more if you look successful. But the truth? Real players can smell desperation. They know who's renting their image and who owns their reality. Ask yourself, why do you need to be seen? Why do you need people to know you're doing well? That's not confidence, that's fear. Fear of being average. Fear of being overlooked. But in chasing visibility, you become predictable and manipulable. That's why the rich play the opposite game. They hide. They move in silence, build in shadows, and let their net worth speak long after they've stopped talking. They understand the more people know about your wealth, the more they can take from it. So they stay quiet and powerful. They don't buy liabilities to impress. They buy leverage to multiply. They understand that every dollar spent to appear rich is a dollar stolen from the chance to become rich. And that's the game most people never learn. Looking rich gets you followers. Being rich gets you freedom. One feeds your ego. The other feeds your family for generations. So next time you feel that itch to prove yourself, stop. Let your results speak for you. Let your silence make them wonder. Let your wealth accumulate quietly until it's undeniable. Because the real kings don't show off the crown. They move like shadows, unseen, untouchable, unstoppable. And by the time the world notices them, it's already too late to compete. 4. You work hard, they work strategically. Effort means nothing without direction. The poor glorify grind. The rich glorify positioning. You've been told all your life that hard work is the key to success. Wake up early, grind harder, sleep less, repeat. But if hard work alone created wealth, every construction worker and delivery driver would be a millionaire. You don't stay broke because you're lazy. You stay broke because your effort has no leverage. You're climbing the wrong mountain faster than everyone else and calling it ambition. The poor are trained to glorify labor. The rich are trained to glorify leverage. One trades sweat for survival. The other trades strategy for scale. Think about it. Who gets tired first, the worker or the owner? The worker runs on exhaustion. The owner runs on systems. While you're chasing hours, they're building engines that run while they sleep. You've been brainwashed to believe that busyness equals progress, that the man who hustles the hardest deserves the most. But that's a lie told by those who profit from your grind. The system rewards those who think, not those who burn out. You can work 100 hours a week and still be a pawn if your labor builds someone else's empire. Effort without direction isn't noble. It's wasteful. The rich don't move more. They move better. They don't sprint, they position. A rich man studies how to multiply his energy. He delegates, automates, compounds. He invests in skills and systems that work for him long after he's done working. You, on the other hand, are told to keep pushing. But what's the point of pushing if the ladder you're climbing is leaning against the wrong wall? Hard work makes you dependable. Strategic work makes you dangerous. The worker says, "I gave my all today." The strategist says, "I built something that will pay me forever." Look at every empire around you. None were built on pure labor. They were built on structure, on understanding how to turn effort into exponential return. The average man thinks in hours. The rich think in outcomes. It's not that they don't work hard, they just refuse to waste energy on things that don't compound. They pick battles that create ripple effects. They plant seeds that grow while others sleep. They know the game isn't about effort, it's about angles. A billionaire doesn't hustle harder than you. He just plays a different game entirely. You grind for survival. He strategizes for scale. You trade time for paychecks. He trades ideas for ownership. You think in weeks. He thinks in decades. You were taught to worship the grind because it keeps you obedient. The system feeds on your exhaustion. It calls you hard-working while you burn out for pennies. Meanwhile, the ones who barely work own the companies that take your effort and multiply it 1,000-fold. That's the cruel irony. The people who told you to work harder never did. They worked smarter, built leverage, and now get paid off your effort. They positioned themselves above the grind and convinced you it was noble to stay in it. So here's the truth. Working hard isn't the goal. Escaping the need to work hard is. That doesn't mean being lazy, it means being intentional. It means learning to use time as a weapon, not a leash. It means shifting from how can I earn more to how can I make my work earn for me. That's how rich men think. They see every task as an investment. Every action must build a system, improve a process, or free up time. If it doesn't, it's noise. Hard work is honorable, but strategy builds empires. Effort creates momentum. Positioning creates dominion. You can be the fastest on the field, but if you're running the wrong direction, you lose anyway. So stop glorifying grind. Start glorifying vision. The goal isn't to work until you die. It's to build something that lives when you stop. Because kings don't win by running harder. They win by standing still on the right ground. 5. You fear risk. They weaponize it. Comfort keeps you stagnant. The wealthy treat risk as a tool, not a threat. They fail fast and buy your fear. You were raised to avoid danger, to play it safe, be realistic, and not take unnecessary risks. But the truth is simple. Safety is the most dangerous illusion ever sold. The poor cling to security. The rich build it. The poor want guarantees. The rich create them. You stay broke not because you lack intelligence, but because you fear uncertainty. Everything you call stable is someone else's control mechanism. Your salary, someone's calculated expense. Your comfort, someone's leverage over you. The system feeds you comfort to keep you obedient, because comfort kills ambition faster than failure ever could. Risk terrifies you because you were trained to associate it with loss. The wealthy were trained to see it as a multiplier. They don't ask, "What if I lose?" They ask, "What will I learn and how fast can I rebuild?" The average man avoids failure. The rich rehearse it. They take small losses early so they can take massive wins later. They're not fearless, they're familiar with fear. Look at the patterns. You save money in a bank, it loses value. They invest money into systems, it compounds. You fear a job loss, they fire themselves and create freedom. You cling to comfort, they chase control. The poor spend years analyzing risk until the opportunity is gone. The rich make calculated moves while everyone else is still debating. They know the cost of hesitation is invisible debt, the life you could have lived but didn't. Every rich man you admire has failed publicly, lost deals, lost money, lost respect. But they gained resilience, information, and momentum. Meanwhile, the man who never risks anything gains nothing, except regret. Here's the paradox. The more you fear risk, the more risky your life becomes. Because comfort erodes over time. That safe job can vanish overnight. That secure savings account dies slowly through inflation. And that predictable lifestyle becomes a cage disguised as peace. The rich know that uncertainty is the entry fee for freedom. They don't run from volatility, they manage it. They diversify, delegate, and design backup plans. They build options, not illusions. You were told to avoid risk by people who benefit when you stay still. Schools reward obedience, not courage. Employers reward loyalty, not boldness. Governments reward dependency, not freedom. The moment you stop fearing risk, the entire system loses control over you. Risk is the great separator between slaves and masters. The man who avoids it will always serve the man who embraces it. Think about it. Every empire, every innovation, every fortune was built by someone willing to bet against certainty. The airplane, the internet, the stock market, all began as stupid ideas in the eyes of the safe and the scared. The rich don't have supernatural foresight. They just understand failure is data. They know that one good risk can erase 10 bad ones. That's why they act fast, fail fast, and learn even faster. You, on the other hand, were taught to overthink every move, to seek permission before acting, to wait until it's safe. But safety never comes, only stagnation. The real question isn't, what if I fail? It's, what if I never try? Because comfort has a price, and it's called mediocrity. The rich weaponize your fear. They sell you insurance for things you'll never lose. They build companies around your need for safety. They profit from your hesitation. While you're praying for stability, they're flipping volatility into fortune. They use your caution as currency. Every time you choose comfort, someone else collects. Risk isn't the enemy. Ignorance is. The danger isn't losing. It's never learning. And the only way to master the game is to play it with your eyes open. So stop trying to eliminate risk. Learn to calculate it. Get comfortable with discomfort. Fail with intention. Because the moment risk stops scaring you, you start controlling it. That's when life bends in your favor. That's when money, freedom, and opportunity start chasing you. Remember, you can fear risk and stay a servant, or you can weaponize it and become the master. 6. You seek validation. They seek control. Every like, trend, and opinion you chase steals your focus. The rich build. The distracted entertain. Most people don't want success, they want witnesses. They crave attention, not achievement. They want to look like they're winning, not actually win. That's why the poor chase validation. They feed on approval from friends, strangers, even enemies. They confuse being seen with being significant. But here's the hard truth. The moment you seek validation, you surrender control. You become addicted to applause. You make decisions not from logic, but from the fear of losing attention. The rich, they understand attention is a tool, not a drug. They don't chase it, they design it. They control the narrative instead of being controlled by it. Look at social media. The masses post to be liked. The wealthy post to be paid. One needs validation, the other commands influence. Validation is a subtle form of slavery. Every time you adjust your behavior to fit the expectations of others, you weaken your power. You give away your direction in exchange for approval that means nothing in the end. Think about it. How much of what you do daily is for yourself? The clothes you buy, the car you drive, the things you post. Are they driven by purpose or perception? The poor man's greatest fear is to be disliked. The rich man's greatest weapon is indifference. Because the man who doesn't need approval cannot be controlled. Validation seekers follow trends. Leaders create them. The rich understand that control, not applause, is the real currency of the modern world. Here's what most people miss. Validation is expensive. Every second spent worrying about opinions is a second stolen from building something real. The people you're trying to impress are too busy chasing their own validation to even notice yours. The truly powerful operate in silence. They move when no one's watching. They execute plans while others argue in comment sections. They're not competing for relevance. They're designing empires. The poor confuse visibility with progress. They want to go viral. The rich want to go unreachable. The rich don't need to prove. They own proof. Validation also feeds emotional instability. Because the moment applause fades, so does your confidence. That's why most people can't sustain success. They built it on external energy instead of internal conviction. But control is different. Control means you decide your narrative, your tempo, your priorities. It means you build systems that don't care about opinions. It means you can be hated today and still collect tomorrow. The poor beg for attention. The rich engineer it. They know attention is leverage. That's why they buy platforms, not followers. They don't chase trends, they fund them. Validation seekers live in reaction. Power seekers live in creation. Every like you chase is a leash around your neck. Every opinion you fear is a chain around your potential. And every trend you follow is another distraction from your mission. The rich know this. That's why they're quiet when others are loud. They observe. They plan. They let the world burn itself out, chasing temporary fame, while they accumulate permanent control. If you want to escape this cycle, stop broadcasting your every move. Disappear. Build in silence. Let your results scream. Because the moment people can't read you, they can't predict you. And the moment they can't predict you, you become dangerous. Remember this. You can't be both respected and needy. You can't be powerful and desperate for approval. You must choose. The poor ask, do they like me? The rich ask, do they need me? The first question builds dependency. The second builds control. The world is full of people trying to be liked. That's why it's ruled by the few who don't care. Stop seeking validation. Start seeking influence. Start building things that make people dependent on your value, not your personality. Because validation dies the moment attention shifts. But control lasts generations. The rich don't chase trends, they own the platforms that create them. The question is, are you chasing likes or writing the algorithm? 7. You think small, they think generational. You plan for the weekend, they plan for the century. Legacy isn't about money, it's about the structures your money builds. Most people only think as far as their next paycheck, their next vacation, their next dopamine hit. They're trapped inside a mental cage called short-term thinking. Every decision is built around comfort, not consequence. And that's exactly why they stay broke. You see, the rich don't chase the now, they design the later. They move like architects of time. They plant seeds knowing they might never sit in the shade. Because power doesn't belong to the one who works hardest. It belongs to the one who thinks longest. The poor think in moments. The rich think in generations. When the average man earns money, he spends it to feel alive. When the wealthy earn money, they multiply it to stay alive long after death. Because for them, wealth isn't luxury, it's legacy. The man who thinks short-term buys comfort. The man who thinks long-term builds empires. You see it everywhere. The poor celebrate payday. The rich celebrate ownership. The poor look for a weekend escape. The rich create lives they don't need to escape from. Short-term thinking is emotional. It's impulsive, reactive, desperate. It's needing to see immediate results because patience feels like pain. But long-term thinking, that's strategic warfare. It's understanding that every sacrifice is an investment. The average man wants to enjoy life now. The rich want to own life later. They delay gratification not because they're disciplined saints, but because they understand math. Here's the reality. Most people would rather look rich today than be rich forever. They'll trade a decade of compound growth for a few moments of validation. They'll buy liabilities and call it living. Meanwhile, the rich are quietly acquiring assets that will print income for their children's children. It's not about greed, it's about vision. Because when you think generationally, you stop asking, how much can I make? And start asking, what will this decision mean 50 years from now? Look at dynasties. Families like the Rothschilds, Rockefellers, and modern equivalents in tech. They don't chase trends. They create infrastructures that outlast them. They think in bloodlines, not lifetimes. You, on the other hand, were taught to survive, not to build. You were conditioned to trade time for money, spend it on distractions, and call that success. But what if the real game was never about income? What if it was about immortality through creation? The poor man's goal is comfort. The rich man's goal is continuity. That's why the poor buy what loses value, and the rich buy what outlives them. Ask yourself this: if you disappeared tomorrow, would your work still produce results? Would your family still eat? Would your ideas still move through the world? If the answer is no, you're thinking too small. Generational wealth isn't just about passing down assets. It's about passing down discipline. It's about embedding intelligence, systems, and strategy into your lineage. Because what's the use of inheritance if your children don't know how to protect it? The rich don't just leave money. They leave methods. They raise successors, not dependents. They educate their bloodline in power, privacy, and patience. Meanwhile, the poor pass down emotional debt, insecurity, scarcity, and fear of risk. The rich pass down momentum. When you start thinking generationally, you move differently. You stop reacting to temporary problems and start engineering permanent solutions. You stop buying trends and start buying timelessness. That's why the rich don't panic during economic chaos. They plan for it. They know every crash is an opportunity for transfer of power. Because while others complain, they accumulate. Thinking small feels safe. Thinking generationally feels lonely. Because the average person can't understand a vision that outlives them. They'll call you obsessed, cold, or greedy. But in truth, they're just short-sighted. Generational thinkers don't chase applause. They chase impact. They move in silence, build in patience, and understand that legacy requires both ruthlessness and responsibility. And when you start operating like that, money stops being your goal. It becomes your instrument, your weapon to carve your family name into time itself. Because wealth fades, trends die, but structure survives. Stop thinking about what you'll gain this month. Start thinking about what your bloodline will stand on a century from now. That's how kings are made. That's how poverty ends. That's how your name becomes eternal. 8. You're emotionally attached to money. They're ruthlessly logical. You save out of fear. They invest out of foresight. The moment you detach emotion from currency, wealth begins. Most people never get rich because they treat money like a god, not a tool. They worship it, fear losing it, obsess over saving it. They let it dictate their emotions instead of controlling it with logic. That's why the poor cling to money and the rich make it move. Because to the rich, money isn't emotional, it's strategic. The broke man holds onto every dollar like it's oxygen. The rich man releases it with precision, knowing it will return multiplied. One operates out of fear, the other out of foresight. You were taught to save. They were taught to circulate. When you see $1,000, you think about what you can buy. When they see $1,000, they think about what it can build. Fear keeps you in survival mode. Logic moves you into expansion. And until you switch that mindset, you'll never rise. The emotional relationship with money begins early. Society teaches scarcity. Don't waste. Play it safe. Save for a rainy day. But those phrases are psychological chains. They don't build wealth. They maintain obedience. The rich aren't reckless. They're rationally cold. They detach emotion from financial decisions. They don't ask, will this make me feel good? They ask, will this make me free? Meanwhile, the emotional spender buys validation disguised as luxury. They purchase relief from boredom, stress, or insecurity. They don't understand that every impulsive purchase is a vote for their own slavery. The emotional saver is no better. They hoard. They let fear of loss stop them from seizing opportunity. Their safety becomes their prison, because money that doesn't move dies. The rich know that wealth is like blood. It needs circulation. They send money into the world to work, not to rest. They build systems, businesses, and assets that breathe life into their income. They don't save for retirement. They engineer permanence. Emotion clouds judgment. It makes you chase short-term pleasure instead of long-term power. You buy things to look successful instead of building something that makes you successful. That's why the rich detach completely from how money feels. They track numbers, not moods. They analyze outcomes, not opinions. They know that emotions are the enemy of investment, because emotion makes you panic when the market dips. Logic makes you buy when everyone else is scared. Emotion makes you sell when things look bad. Logic makes you hold when others lose faith. That's why markets transfer wealth from the emotional to the logical, from the impulsive to the patient. When you stop viewing money as something sacred, you start to see it as what it truly is: leverage. You use it to buy time. You use it to build control. You use it to create silence in a noisy world. The poor man cries over every lost dollar. The rich man studies the loss and learns how to never lose it again. Because every financial failure is a test of emotional discipline. Detach. That's the key word. Detach from the thrill of spending. Detach from the fear of investing. Detach from the social performance of looking wealthy. Because until you detach emotion from currency, money will always control you. The rich don't love money. They respect it. They treat it like energy, directable, expandable, replaceable. They use it to expand their reach, not their ego. You see, emotion makes you reactive. Logic makes you proactive. And in the financial world, the reactive man is prey. Start thinking like an operator, not a participant. Stop making emotional decisions based on how much you feel you deserve, and start making logical ones based on what you can create. Money responds to clarity, not craving. To intelligence, not insecurity. When you can look at a dollar and feel nothing, no fear, no greed, no desperation, that's when you finally gain control over it. Because in that stillness, you stop being a servant to your finances and become the one who commands them. That's the difference between the broke and the wealthy. One obeys emotion. The other obeys reason. Detach from emotion. Think like an investor. Move like a strategist. And you'll realize money was never the master. It was waiting for you to become one. You've been told your whole life that the key to success is hard work. But the truth is, hard work without detachment is just emotional labor disguised as progress. The rich don't think like workers. They think like architects. They don't let emotion guide them. They let calculation lead them. And that's the real game. Not chasing money, but mastering the psychology behind it. When you stop seeking validation, stop fearing loss, and stop reacting emotionally to every win or failure, you enter the mindset the powerful have guarded for centuries. Because money doesn't flow to the strongest or the smartest. It flows to the calmest mind in the room. So start watching your emotions the same way the rich watch markets, with distance, precision, and control. And watch how everything: respect, wealth, opportunity starts to move toward you. If this opened your eyes, leave a comment below. Let me know which truth hit hardest. And if you're ready to keep evolving with me, subscribe. The next lesson might just shift how you see the world forever.